On this episode of the Best of the Our View podcast, I present to you part of my conversation with artist John Bramblitt. John is a blind painter, and in this episode, he shared his unique technique of how he feels his way around the canvas to create his masterpieces. I truly enjoyed this conversation. He and I had so many fun moments and such a great time laughing with each other, and I am very happy to share this episode with you. Be sure to subscribe to the Our View podcast to hear this episode in its entirety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. To start the interview, I always like my guests to introduce themselves and what would you like the listeners to know about you?
Well, probably the most important, I'm smarter than I sound, I hope. No. let's at least hope that. No, my name is John Bramblitt, and I'm a painter, and I've been painting professionally for years. And probably the thing that makes me different than most other professional painters is that I'm blind. I lost my eyesight in college, and then I thought I loved to draw all my life, and I thought all that was over, and I had no idea that I would ever be able to get back into artwork. But it took losing my eyesight to really understand what art really was. It's not something in your eyes, and it's not something in your hands or any of that. It's in your heart. It's in your mind. It's ideas. Art is just communication. That's all it is. And it's all about what you can do. So you find ways to be able to do it. You find your own ways. And so art became a very positive kind of thing for me. I was so angry and depressed. I needed some way out of it, and art, it was like that rope that I needed to be able to climb out of it. And art's a great thing to do. It's a great activity on a day when you're having a terrible day, and it's a great way to celebrate a good day. So a bad day, good day. It's a good day for art. I don't know.
Well, I just love your energy and your enthusiasm about the art, and I love that. Like you said, it's a good day for art every day, whether you're having a great day or not so great day. That's really so important. And the other thing you said was it's, art is not about what you see. It's like, it's a feeling. It's what you feel. And it's in you, I think, is what the important thing is to
you're so
mention.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yes. This last weekend I was doing a conference. It was a virtual conference because of all this going on. Uh-huh. But one of the people that I was doing it with, her name is Grace Fisher, and she's a painter, and she's a quadriplegic, and she paints by putting the paintbrush in her mouth and by painting, by moving her mouth, does this incredible artwork.
Wow.
And the other people at the conference, like Eric Weinheimer, which I know I'm mispronouncing his last name, I always do. I love Eric. He's so great. I've known him for years, or you've done different things with him for years. But he's the first blind guy to scale Mount Everest. You see these different people, and they have different ideas of art. Like his idea of art is to go kayaking in the Grand Canyon and to climb mountains and to express himself through that. Grace's is through painting. Mine happens to be through painting, and it's I was giving a talk at the Metropolitan in New York once. It was the first time I ever gave a talk there, and I was showing some of my artwork. And I thought I had this bright idea. I thought, hey, I want to talk about other artists with disabilities throughout the ages. And I thought it'd be such an easy thing, because I could probably find maybe a couple, maybe, and I would just mention them. I quickly learned that it would be much easier to talk about artists that didn't have a disability. There were famous artists in the past.
Right.
It was just hidden. It was just hidden. Like so many people who had disabilities painted, and they did artwork and sculpture. But it makes sense. Art is about communicating, and who has more to say than the people who have been through things, who have, had to struggle or have had a challenge in their life. So
it's a way to express themselves. Yeah.
Yes. So it's so funny, but if you look into old master painters, most of them had a disability. Most of them had something going on in their life, but it was just hidden because you couldn't talk about it in the past.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Yes. And that's exactly what, what I had said to you before. That's what I want people to know. Like people with disabilities, we have stories to tell, and, and it's just our, the challenges that we face. Everybody faces a challenge at some point in their life, whether it's a disability or something else, but it's the way you respond to it. And, that's what I really want to touch on next with your story. So you lost your eyesight in college, you said. Um, was that a result of a condition that you had, a diagnosis that you had before, or what caused your blindness?
I was born with epilepsy, and it was severe epilepsy. And then I was born with some neurological problems. I had kidney problems, had a kidney removed by the time I was 7, and was just having severe seizures that just kept getting worse. And then I ended up getting Lyme's disease, probably when I was around like 12, 13, but it was undiagnosed for years because my neurologists, they weren't looking for anything new, because I already had epilepsy. And, so they weren't, they figured it was probably some weird kind of thing happening with that. So the Lyme disease just went undiagnosed for years, and it was causing more damage and more problems. And the treatment, either for the severe seizures I was having, because I was on every cocktail of drugs you can imagine to try to stop the seizures, and then finally treatment for the Lyme disease, which had progressed. Either one of those two things together or both of them together, I started having seizures, status epilepticus, where I was having these seizures that I wasn't coming out of. And most of the time when you have a seizure, then you go postictal, and then you're fine. You feel really worn out, and you're like, holy crap, what just happened?
Wow.
But you're fine. And then, but then I was having these where my breathing would stop and my heart would stop, and that's apparently really bad for you. It's really bad for your brain, even my brain. You don't want that to happen. And so it was causing this damage to my occipital lobe, where vision is, in my hearing. And so I was losing my vision a little bit each time, but we didn't see it as a vision problem. We saw it as a problem with the seizures, with the epilepsy. And finally, though, I was having the seizures, and finally in college, I had a series of them where my vision, I think in April of 2001 was measured at 20/400, which is like twice over the legal limit for blindness. And then like a month later, it was 20/800. And then by the end of the summer, they couldn't measure it anymore. Like, it was just gone. But I was fortunate. I didn't feel fortunate at the time. I feel like somebody punched me in the stomach. It was like,
right.
It was because when my low vision specialist, the doctor who deals with people with visual impairment, said, you're blind. It's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. I really thought they'd have like a magic pill or something, like some sort of, like, well, if you take a Tylenol, you just call us in the morning and you're going to be fine.
Right.
Yeah, I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was just so. But I was fortunate in that I was a student at a university, and the practice at the time, at least, was that if you were already enrolled in university, they wanted to keep you there. So instead of going to the school for the blind, or instead of having to go to all these different places,
right,
the programs kind of helped keep me there. And my Office of Disability Accommodations at my university were amazing, just the best people.
That's great.
They were so, oh my goodness. And it's not that way everywhere. So I always tell people, if you're thinking about going to college, go and check out the ODA office first and make sure they're proactive and they know what they're doing and all that. And mine was. So I started learning how to use a white cane. I started learning, I was still going to classes. Somebody would take me to classes. Even before I could use a white cane, I was learning Braille. I was learning how to use the screen readers for the computers and things.
Right.
Everything, learning all this stuff. And so I was doing everything right, but on the inside, I was so angry. I didn't even realize, because I thought I was doing everything I was supposed to, but I was so depressed. I was so angry.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was not a happy time. I didn't even realize how angry I was, to tell you the truth. You feel like you're the only person. I mean, you know that other people are going through things and all that. You know that in your mind, but you also feel very isolated and alone. And
yeah.
It's just, it's, you feel bad. You feel really bad. And
you do.
And me, like, I did the math in my head, and I couldn't see any way that my life would ever get any better. Like, I didn't see any positives in my life or any change, because I was in college and I had the epilepsy and I was doing good in college. I was doing well, but it was all I could do to kind of be there. And I didn't see how blindness would help. I would make anything easier or better. So I thought, well, my goodness, like, this is it. Like, this is, I'm kind of done. And the only reason I stayed in college or even like really tried was just because I didn't want to be a burden on my family. Not that my family would ever think I would be a burden. It's
Right.
just that, when you grow up with a disability, like with epilepsy and all that,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a supportive family, a loving family, that's always behind you, become really close. And when you love someone, you don't want to, you want to help them. You want to give them good things. You don't want to give them bad
Right.
things. And
Yeah, and you
I
don't
felt
want to
like
feel
my
like you're
blindness was
adding extra stress or anything
exactly,
on them and
yeah.
all of
So
that.
I thought,
Yes. Yeah.
my goodness, if I can at least stay, if I could do college, if I could do this, I could get some kind of job, and at least just do kind of do my own thing. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that thing isn't going to be very big. Maybe it's not going to be, maybe it's nothing really, but I'm not going to hurt anybody, so,
Right.
because it just seemed like, if it was a video game, it'd be like, oh, you know what, let's just hit the do-over, or something,
Yeah.
because, let's just get to the next game because this isn't working. But, you can't do that in life. And I was so fortunate that I had people that believed in me, even when I
Yes.
totally did not believe in myself. It's
So
nice to have people in your corner because I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people have a disability. They're older, or they are in a circumstance. Maybe it's where they live, or whatever is going on. You don't necessarily have someone that's fighting for you. And at that time, you really need someone there. Like, you need someone that has your back.
I know when we first started talking, you mentioned that you like to draw when you were younger as well. But then you didn't. Is it that you didn't get into painting until after you lost your vision, or how did that come to be?
I didn't have the courage to try painting because I didn't think I'd be any good at it. But I did drawing, drafting, illustration. Like, I could draw before I could walk, I think. For some reason, that clicked in my
Uh-huh.
brain. And even like, what if I was going to write a story for English or something, or like for anything, I would draw it out first. Like, it just makes sense to my brain. Like, I've always had this sort of memory where I can remember what something looks like. And then, so I would draw cartoons. I did the blueprints for houses. I learned how to do every kind of drawing I could.
Wow.
But I was like an armchair quarterback for painting. Like, I would read about master painters, Monet and Matisse and Picasso and all these different people, and Van Gogh, and love them, and would read about how they would set up their studios, what paints they would use, and all this. But I didn't think I would be a good painter. But then whenever my eyesight left, I couldn't draw anymore because I couldn't feel the pencils or the graphite or any of that. So it didn't even occur to me to try that there would
Wow.
be a way to do that. So for
Mm-hmm.
the first year, like, and growing up, art was my way of dealing with bad stuff. So if I was having health problems or anything, I would draw it out. I had stacks of drawings, and when they would get like too high, I would throw them away,
Mm-hmm.
because the benefit of it is the actual drawing. It's not keeping it; it's the drawing. So,
Right.
and my
Yeah.
mom would snag a few here and there, but otherwise they went in the trash. And once a paper was filled up front and back, side to side, it wasn't any use to me anymore, and I would get a new piece of paper. But
Wow.
but it wasn't until I started learning how to use a white cane, and it took about a year for me to learn how to travel from my apartment, which was really close to the university, and travel independently and be able to find the university, and then find the right building, the right class, and all that, by myself. It would still leave me like I'd be in a cold sweat by the time I would get there because I was so new to it. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to cross the street now. I'm like, you got to
Wow.
remember the engine sounds and all these weird things you got to do. There's only 2 streets. It wasn't that big a deal, but at the time it was like, holy moly, it's ridiculous. Um, but I could do it, and I thought, well, good grief, if I could get across this town by basically using my sense of touch. To use a white cane, you're just using your sense of touch on the cane to be able to
Mm-hmm.
feel the ground. And there's techniques you use to be able to guide your way and to be able to know where you are, to orient. And I thought, if I could do that across a city, surely I could do it across something much smaller, like a canvas, if I use the same techniques.